Out of PlayStation 4's three biggest launch exclusives, Killzone, Shadowfall, Knack, and Resogun, Shadowfall is undoubtedly drawing the most attention, and for good reason. Now that Drive Club has been delayed until 2014, Guerrilla Games' newest Killzone game is the launch title that looks the most next-gen. Sure, it's a first-person shooter and we've played a million of them, but Shadowfall is the very first next-gen first-person shooter built from the ground up for the PlayStation 4, and there's a certain undeniable mystique to that. When you play Killzone Shadowfall, whether through its single-player campaign or online, you'll notice clean, pretty graphics that run at or near 60 frames per second. And you'll notice something staggeringly different from previous Killzone games. There are actual colors being used. Killzone used to be all about drab coloring, about browns and grays only being broken up by the orange eyes of the enemy Helghast. That's no longer the case. Killzone Shadowfall, like Mercenary on Vita, throws splashes of color everywhere. This is a vivid game, and it really pops as you play. Killzone always had a thrilling underlying plot, but previous games in the series never bothered to take advantage of it. Shadowfall strives to change that too. Set several decades after the conclusion of Killzone 3, Helghast refugees fleeing their destroyed planet arrive on Vecta. But they live a life more akin to post-war Berlin, with little in the way of integration. Indeed, a giant wall, clearly invoking the Berlin Wall, separates the two sides in Vecta City, creating an underlying tension. Guerrilla Games stresses this Cold War mentality that underlies everything in Shadowfall. You'll be playing as an operative trying to halt the Cold War from turning into a far more dangerous hot war, and so Shadowfall doesn't take place in the middle of an all-out war like previous Killzone games. Instead, it takes place behind the scenes. It's a nice change of pace for the series, especially when you take into account its non-linearity. That's right, Killzone Shadowfall often gives you options in terms of how to tackle certain objectives. In this sense, it feels a bit like the original Crysis, though it doesn't take place in an open-ended, open world. Shadowfall also gives you a robotic companion called Owl. Owl is controlled with the DualShock 4's touchpad, and using it will be integral to your success. You can deploy helpful shields to help you deflect enemy bullets, you can have it go out and stun enemies, and you can even use it as a mobile, ever-useful rope line to get out of harm's way. Shadowfall is a hard game and the enemy AI is quite advanced, so Owl will almost certainly end up being a key to victory. Killzone's bread and butter, at least with its hardcore community, has always been its multiplayer. In an attempt to make multiplayer accessible to all players, Guerrilla has abandoned any experience system in lieu of a challenge system. All weapons, equipment, scopes, and the like are unlocked from the get-go, and there are only 3 character classes to choose from. In multiplayer, Killzone Shadowfall stresses skill above all else. And with a ton of multiplayer DLC promised, including free maps, Shadowfall promises to keep its multiplayer component alive and vibrant for some time to come. Killzone Shadowfall launches alongside PlayStation 4 on November 15th in North America and November 29th in Europe. For more on the game in the weeks leading up to its release, including our full review, keep it tuned to IGN.